All right, here we go. We are live, and Kim is still in her car.
I haven't moved from this spot since last week.
That's
She's
right.
in her van down by the river.
Down by the river.
If Rush shows up, it'll be, yep, she's still living in her car. You need to start that GoFundMe. So, all right. Well,
If you have just $1 to spare, you could get me out of this suburban down by the river.
That's right. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and cue our intro, then we'll get started. All right. So, good deal. Okay, so for anyone who is new and doesn't know how we do things here, this is not an official book club, so we don't read ahead. We are going through this textbook. It is very good and often confusing. It is called Ketogenic. Yes, the Science of Therapeutic Carbohydrate Restriction in Human Health. And we are working our way through chapter 1, and we read as we go, and we discuss as we go, and try to figure it out as we go. We've got Carrie, who's a data analyst, Kim, who is actively working as a nurse. I'm a retired nurse, so we're trying to put our three of our left brains together to figure this stuff out, and it's been good. So you guys doing okay? I know, Carrie, you were telling us that you've, had a couple of losses of friends. I hope that, this will be at least a distraction for you today.
Yeah, I was looking forward to this. So I'm just kind of, if I seem a little scatterbrained, just forgive me.
Yeah, completely understandable. We're too young to be losing our old high school friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even 60.
Yeah, it's really disturbing because, as we were talking, before we went live, it's like you face your own mortality. And it's just, and it's not like there was an accident or something that took them. It was just, their health was just bad. And it just really is disturbing. Just, how poor people's health is in general. And so it just makes me more determined than ever to continue, eating this way and to continue to take care of myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you mentioned, I think last week you had mentioned that you had just lost your friend, and then her husband was at death's door and he just passed away yesterday, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's just so tragic, for a husband and wife within a week.
I know. It is just so sad. And they were in our original friend group, so there were a couple of other couples that hung out with us. And, I just knew them for years. They were just part of our original friend group. And it's just, you look back and it's like you were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, facing the future. You were all young and, the world was your oyster. And then you just, it's now you wake up and you're, 58 years old and you got friends dying like that.
Right. Yeah. You don't expect that to happen until you're at least in your 70s, if not later, but at least 70s. So well, hopefully this is going to provide some distraction for you, and as we try to navigate this,
try to figure out what some of these words mean.
Yes, exactly. And exactly. So we left off, so we're in chapter 1. Holy cow, I'm just thinking ahead.
We're still in chapter 1, folks.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of getting close. Well, close, relatively speaking, right? So we're on page 50, and the end of chapter 1 is basically one little tiny paragraph into page 56. So we're getting there. So, all right, well, I guess I can start reading this time. Okay. It's kind of a long chapter, so maybe I'll read a long section, so maybe I'll read half of it. So the first section we're on here is called Goal 2, reducing overall fat consumption from approximately 40% to 30% of energy intake. And just to kind of recap, the goals are the USDA goals, dietary goals for Americans that and the McGovern Commission. So we covered last week, we covered goal number 1, which is to increase carbs. And goal number 2 is to decrease fat. We see how that worked out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to start reading this section. So it starts out with the heading, the problem. So the problem, according to them, this change increased consumption of dietary carbohydrates and polyunsaturated vegetable oils. So the results, so the higher carbohydrate consumption drove the obesity epidemic that in turn unleashed the cataclysmic metabolic storm in those with insulin resistance. The intended purpose of this goal was twofold. First, to reduce the risk of heart disease, according to Ansel Keys's theory, the dietary fat, especially saturated fat, is a direct cause of heart disease. Second, to prevent and reverse obesity, according to the theory that since fat provides more than twice the number of calories than an equal amount of carbohydrate, 9 versus 4 calories per gram, then clearly replacing dietary carbohydrates with fat will cure obesity. Well, they were wrong on both of those accounts. The unanticipated outcome was that goal 2 caused the increase in carbohydrate consumption that led to the global obesity epidemic by exposing those with insulin resistance to the cataclysmic metabolic storm shown in figure 112. Is that the figure that we did last time? Let me just look here. I'm going to have to scroll forward.
Yes, it's that, the really
It's-
complicated.
Yeah, the complicated one, which I'm not going to go over that one again. That one was like really complicated.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're done with that one. Okay, so cataclysmic storm is a good wording for that one.
Mhm.
So with regard to removing dietary fat to prevent obesity, in 1977, when this goal was first promoted, the popular understanding was that an imbalance between the number of calories ingested in food and expended in daily living, including during exercise, caused obesity. According to this model, subsequently named the calories in, calories out, or CICO model, it seemed logical to suggest the restriction of calorie-dense fat in the diet. The theory goes that if you take calorie-laden fat out of the diet, everyone should eat fewer calories and lose all their excess weight. Problem solved, or so the McGovern Committee believed. The committee did not foresee that removing fat from the diet would take with it both taste and the special texture, the mouthfeel that its fat content adds to foods. Food manufacturers soon realized the difficulty of selling fat-free, high carbohydrate foods that taste little better than cardboard. Do you guys remember when they first came out with this and how horrible everything tasted?
Yes, it was awful.
Yeah.
Awful. Yeah, I remember used to say, actually saying, man, this tastes like cardboard.
Yeah.
It was just absolute garbage. So they soon discovered the solution: simply add some sugar for taste, then more and more for a few reasons. First, because sugar is cheap and became cheaper with the discovery and production of high fructose corn syrup, a byproduct of the waste was generated in the growing of maize or corn. Secondly, because sugar is one of the most addictive drugs on planet Earth. The addition of sugar to essentially all processed foods currently on the market produced the perfect plague, a pandemic of sugar addiction. That plague would help drive the consumption of highly processed, sugar-saturated, modern, quote-unquote, foods, actually food-like substances, In turn, these would become key drivers of the modern type 2 diabetic and obesity epidemics that the McGovern Committee's dietary guidelines unleashed. To defend itself against clear evidence that these processed foods drive the obesity epidemic, the food industry took action. Following an initiative that the International Life Sciences Institute directed, the industry shifted the focus of blame away from the addictive foods they produced and onto their customers and the consumers. So this is where the blaming began. And it's interesting because it trickled into the medical field too. Because doctors would say, if you're not following my instructions to go low fat and to reduce your fat intake and reduce your calories and exercise more, then you must not be, if it's not working, you must be doing something wrong.
Yeah, you're not disciplined. You're not doing it enough. You're not exercising enough, and you're not cutting down your food intake enough.
Right. It
It's your
can't
fault.
possibly be. Yes, it's your fault. So it can't possibly, but it's interesting that the food industry actually started the blame process. So I'll just read a little bit more and then I'll hand it over. They did this by moving the emphasis from food, the toxic food environment, to physical activity. Thus, didn't we cover that in our eat less or jog less or run less, eat more meat book? He talked about how they changed it over to, you got to focus on the physical activity. Thus, at one secret ad hoc meeting in 1999, the CEOs of major U.S. food manufacturers rejected collective action, agreeing only to support the promotion of physical activity among children, a comforting plan that required little of them. For ILSI, which is that International Life Sciences Institute, a company-funded and company-driven nonprofit group, physical activity thus became the only politically viable strategy to make industry part of the solution. The key driver of this covert strategy became Coca-Cola through its front organizations, the ILSL. Published evidence exposed the intent of ILSL involvement and the goal, which is to control national dietary and exercise policies globally. I wonder if that's why Michelle Obama took that on as her platform when she was the first lady. Because that was she was really big on pushing exercise and promoting exercise with kids.
She was real big about changing the diet.
I'm changing the diet too.
She actually changed the food in the schools, and everybody was just mad because nobody wanted to eat healthy food.
Right.
They were used to,
But didn't
Didn't
they reduce meat though? Like the servings of meat and stuff. It was mostly vegetables and fruits, I think.
Probably
I don't know.
Because I think that the mainstream thinking has always been that meat was not great for you, So
yeah. So I also remember I had watched, do you guys know Jamie Oliver, the chef that has his own TV show? He's from Britain, I think. I watched a series of his, this was probably 10 years ago or more. I watched a series of his where he was going into different schools and trying to help them. Are you having trouble hearing me? Can you hear me, Carrie?
Can you hear me, Carrie?
I can hear you, Kim.
I couldn't hear you. That was
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Well, let me know if that happens again. But he was going into different schools and he was working with the people in the cafeteria that were making the school lunches. And he was showing them that they can actually make healthy meals for just as inexpensively as all the processed stuff. And it was really crazy. They were showing all the stuff that they were feeding the kids before. I mean, it was all in big, huge bags. Everything was processed. It was disgusting. But it never, he was hoping it would take off nationwide. And that was all Whole Foods. It wasn't necessarily, it wasn't excluding meat. It wasn't vegetarian or anything. But that sort of thing doesn't take off on a national level for sure, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they've
So
already got us so addicted to the food that they can't just say, "Okay, now everybody's going to be eating salads." You know, it's not going to go over. And some education just must be done before, you know. I don't
Well, and
know.
when
yeah.
kids are
I don't
accustomed,
know
I
what
mean,
the answer is.
they start them young, on that stuff. I mean, they eat, all those goldfish crackers and all that stuff. I mean, just Go-Gurts and fruit roll-ups, all that stuff. I mean,
I mean,
and I gave my
honestly,
share of it to my kids,
yeah, I
so.
have too. Like, I was so ignorant, I just didn't know. Like, I thought,
Mhm,
oh, what's wrong with crackers? Those are good enough, right? I
mhm.
thought fruit roll ups, it's got fruit in it. Like, I really
Yeah,
thought that was like a better option than just going and grabbing some M&Ms. And
yep,
I don't necessarily think that anymore.
Well, I mean, I remember too thinking of trying to come up with creative ideas to, because you want to, like, especially when the kids are young and all the other kids that they're going to school with, they have all this fun food in there, they're
yep,
bringing in their lunches. And so, you don't want them to be trading food, and, you want them to eat what you give them. And so it's like kind of a challenge to find something that meets that fun category,
Hmm.
but it's still healthy, traditionally healthy. So yeah, that's where the fruit roll-ups and the Go-Gurts and all of that, we thought we were doing what was good for our
mhm.
kids. And it was
Yeah,
not at all. So, all
but it
right.
wasn't.
Yeah. So I'll read this one line on this next paragraph, then I'll hand it over. So it says, inadvertently, I had also attracted ILSI's attention. So that's obviously the author here. Okay, Carrie, you want to pick up on in 2015?
Yep. Okay. In 2015, after he had read our article, the New York Times journalist Anahad O'Connor decided to investigate. He found that Coca-Cola was promoting a new science-based solution to the obesity crisis. To maintain a healthy weight, get more exercise, and worry less about cutting calories. To drive this message, Coca-Cola financed a new nonprofit organization, the Global Energy Balance Network, or GEBN. Its vice president was then highly respected health epidemiologist Dr. Stephen Blair, PhD. Blair, a lifelong exerciser with a lifelong weight problem, justified GEBN's focus thus. Most of the focus in the popular media is, oh, they're eating too much, blaming fast food, blaming sugary drinks, and so on. There is virtually no compelling evidence for that in fact is the cause. By the time he made these remarks, Blair had received $3.5 million from Coca-Cola for his research.
Hmm.
And GEBN President Dr. James Hill just $1 million. In his defense, through his life work, Blair has produced a mountain of evidence for the value of physical activity in improving health. In fact, he is currently the most cited living sports scientist, but his linkage to Coca-Cola ultimately proved a poor choice. So, yeah, this is just getting more into that. Because I don't think they really want us to eat less of stuff anyway, so they kind of went away from that message. That's what this sounds like, and they just said, okay, you just need to exercise and just burn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they try to make, like, in today's modern age, everybody's just lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And while we definitely don't get enough physical activity as a society, um, all of this weight is not from being lazy, because you can lose weight so much quicker by changing your diet um,
Mm-hmm.
than you can by exercising. You can exercise until you're blue in the face, and you might drop a few pounds, but you'll see obese people out there, running, and you'll see the same ones. I see the same ones running through my neighborhood, and
Mm-hmm.
they're still obese 5 years later. It's like
Yeah.
it's 80-20 in
Well,
my mind.
and I also see people they seem like they're generally slender, except they still have a belly.
Yeah.
And so you know that their diet is not good, even though they're exercising.
And that's something, I think I've mentioned this to you guys before, but that's something I started noticing like back in the early 2000s. I remember just looking around and looking at the young girls. And,
Yeah.
when we were in school, young girls that were skinny everywhere, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But these girls were skinny everywhere, except for they had this little pot belly that almost looked like they were pregnant.
Yeah, like
And
little muffin top thingy that went all around their pants and spilled
yeah,
over. And
Mhm.
yeah, I was noticing that too.
and I was just thinking back then, I mean, I didn't really even think much about diet back then, but I just thought to myself, like, why do all these girls suddenly have a muffin top? Like, it's only
Right.
been what, from 1993 when I graduated to the year 2000, right? 7
Mhm.
years. I mean, what's changed in that amount of time where people's body build is completely different?
You're right. It is. It is totally different. And of course, we've had this discussion too. I mean, like, of course, I graduated in 1984, and I've really seen. I mean, there was maybe one overweight person in my class, and to tell you the truth, they really, by today's standards, probably wouldn't be much. Oh, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's.
Like,
I
I've
mean,
looked
now
back at
it's.
my school pictures of
Mhm.
the fat kid, I hate to say that, but that's what we called them. They were overweight, right? But when you look at that kid in those pictures, by today's standards, they're not even that big,
Right.
and huge, you know?
Mhm.
So
It's like Kim's froze. Kim,
Uh-oh.
you'll come and look back and you'll see the expression on your face that froze.
am I
Yep.
back?
No, there you go. You're back.
Yep.
So when my phone rings, it knocks me off.
Oh,
Oh,
well,
It's the struggles of living. It's the
yes,
struggles of living in a suburban by the river.
there you go. You got to go find a home to live in.
Sorry, guys. I'm doing the best I can, with my
Oh, my
my
goodness.
iPhone 14 and my MacBook. I'm really roughing it down here by the river.
That's right. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I noticed the same thing too with when I look back at my old, high school class and everything. We did have one boy who was really obese. I mean, we had one girl that was a little
Yeah.
chunky, but we had one boy who was extremely obese. And I just learned very recently that he just passed away. And so, and I graduated in 86. So he was like my age, 56. And he
mhm.
he passed away of a massive heart attack. He was never able to get, a handle on his weight. Now the girl, I saw her and like at our 10-year reunion,
Mhm.
she had gastric bypass surgery, and she looked great. Now I don't know how well it's hung in there over the years, but she actually ended up having gastric bypass surgery. And it was weird because looking back, like to how she was, I don't think anybody her size now would necessarily think they would even do gastric bypass
Mhm.
because she's kind of more of a normal, what's normal now, but she was just a little more on the chunky side,
Yeah.
So
Just
yeah, things have
a lot of changes. Another thing that they say a lot, and I'm sure we'll probably get into that maybe, is things are genetic. Like for the obesity and the type 2 diabetes and just all of this, they disregard the fact that the food is just garbage. It's terrible. And instead, oh, well, it's genetics, but your genetics don't change in 1 or 2 generations.
right.
I mean, yeah, it's like, God, I mean, generations. before
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that can change. So, like, I mean, maybe in 1,000 years, people can tolerate all the carbs and stuff, but I mean, maybe in 1,000 years, I mean, it might even be longer than that. I'm not really sure how long it takes, to be honest, but I just know that it's not going to do it in like 70 or 80 years for sure. It's not
Yeah. Well,
genetic.
No.
even with height, even with height, you know, if you look at like countries, people who immigrate to the United States, when they come from a country where the nutrition is poor, or and they may be, you know, the men may be like 5'6" or 5'8" or whatever, and then they end up having children, and their sons are 5'10", 6 feet tall because of the change in diet. Um, but that's not genetic, that's diet, right? I mean, it'd be crazy to say that was genetic.
Right, because they were just
You know,
malnourished.
right.
Yeah.
They were just getting different nutrition, which affected their height. Well, that's the same thing with us with obesity. It's a change in the diet. It's not genetic.
Right,
You know,
right.
there's no reason why 1, 2 generations can be thin and then all of a sudden the next generation is obese. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So we're all just lazy and lazy and genetically deformed,
Yeah, it's
genetically
all
broken.
Mike's is like on Star Trek when they travel to the seed oil planet where everyone is adapted to seed oils.
They did?
Uh,
Or is that
I
a
don't
joke?
think so.
I
I
don't
think
know.
that's a joke.
I think that was
Yeah.
Mike.
That was Mike.
This is true.
Right. So we have a question.
Hey.
So Michelle, so 6 months strict carnivore, high vitamin D levels, down about 32 pounds. I'm losing my hair by the handfuls. My doctor is against carnivore, so I don't want her to go to her first care. Oh, that happened to me. I started losing my hair too. You guys have any thoughts on that?
Well, I've heard Dr. Berry address it, and I actually did. I lost some hair when I first went keto. And then when I went carnivore, I actually, because I dropped like 15 pounds that and just like that. I mean, and so, Dr. Berry has said, that your body kind of thinks that something is wrong when you're losing weight like that. And so your hair, you might lose hair. And this is, of course, with any diet. It's not just any diet where you drop weight really quickly will make you lose your hair. So I am pleased to say, though, now let's see, I went carnivore in December of 22, and it was a few months later, but I noticed, my hair was, growing. And so, I mean, it's back to what it was before.
It could be that you're not eating enough, potentially. I started taking iodine supplements just to help support my thyroid. But it could be that, if you watch like YouTubers, there's YouTubers out there that have some good videos on hair loss and different theories behind it. You just kind of have to just troubleshoot and see, try eating more for a while. It could be like I started taking the desiccated organs, and that really helped. I feel like that made a difference. So yeah. So if you're not eating any organs, there could be potentially like a nutrition, a nutrient that you're not getting enough of. But the desiccated organs really seem to make a difference. And I don't know if you're sensitive at all to histamine, but just if you are, you have to kind of just ramp up the dose, start low. And I don't think you still need to take a ton. Some of them say take like 1 to 2 a day, and others say take 6 a day. I had the one that said to take 6 a day. So I started with 1 for a week and then ramped up to 2. And I don't think I ever got above 3. And I started to notice my hair was coming back in.
That's good to know.
So what Dr. Berry says about it is he says it's telogen effluvium. I had to look it up because that's kind of a complicated word there. And I thought, surely I'm messing that up. But and it's a reversible condition in which hair falls out after a stressful experience. So he says basically, regardless of how you lose weight, that is a stressor to your body.
Yeah.
And so your body responds accordingly, like by, your hair is not as necessary as some other vital organs. So it drops a lot of it that, anyway, and then it will come back. So I would just give it some time. And as he says, vitamin P, patience, which is really
Yep.
hard for me, especially when it comes to my hair falling out. I have had some periods where I've had more hair loss like earlier on. And there are different reasons why it could be for me. But what I've been doing is I've just been trying to boost it in any way I can. Like I take biotin, I take collagen. I try to, eat plenty of fatty meat with the collagen in it too, but I also take a collagen supplement. I don't care what anybody says. I feel like it helps me. So mentally, it's helping me.
I've
There you
heard
go.
that helps so many people. Yeah, you can get beef collagen.
Yeah, there's much mixed research on this, okay? Some people will poo-poo it, okay? But I think it works, and whatever. I've read that it does work too. So there's it depends.
I had a ton of comments like when I was losing my hair, and of course I put it on my channel. I had a ton of comments about people saying try the collagen. Now I can't because it's high histamine. So I may be able to handle it now because I'm able to handle higher histamine things now, but back then I wasn't able to do it. But yeah, I've heard tons of people say that the collagen really helped. So there's a number of things. Yeah. So we have
and then also, let me finish my sentence. So also I do iodine daily. Okay. I'll do 2 to sometimes I'll even do 4 drops. And then what else? There was something else. I can't remember. But anyway, I guess that's pretty much it. Oh, and then the supplements like Lynn was saying, the desiccated organ supplements. And some of them are six pills. I mean, it's a lot. I don't love taking pills, so that's kind of a lot for me. I don't do those all the time, but I do them. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and you use Lugol's, right? So you use Lugol's for iodine. I use the iodoral tablets, and I take 25 milligrams a day.
Why do you do the tablets?
Because the Lugol's was causing, because I have a histamine issue, and iodine is high histamine. I was having throat swelling when I would take Lugol's solution. Yeah, but I do fine with the tablets.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't cause my throat to swell because they just go right down. And yeah, it was weird, but I figured out that the tablets do better for me. And so Mike has a suggestion to check out Nutrition with Judy. I think she's a really good one. Yeah.
She's so there, Mike, I have noticed a trend in the carnivore community. I think we get kind of defensive because we feel like we constantly have to defend our way of eating. So we're just like, nope, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. Nope, that's not a problem. But there are some things that have come up that are problems. And I think it's better if we honestly address them rather than just sweep them under the rug. And one person that I really like to watch, and I don't know if she specifically has a hair loss video or not, but I love Nutrition with Judy. And I love, is it Nia's Way?
Yeah.
I love her. I relate to her so much. And maybe it's just being a female and, like she's quite a bit younger than me, I think. But so many of the things the topics that she'll talk about, like she will actually bring up, what problems she's had, what she's done to address them. I was watching a video of hers earlier today about her microbiome test, and I thought that was fascinating. And I've actually had one of those done. So I thought, well, I could do that. I could review mine. It's just fascinating because she went and looked up each one of the bacteria and told about why that might be. And she's just really smart. I like her a lot. So anyways, we are out there, people who
she's got a certification in something.
Is it Nia or Naya?
Nia.
Okay, so like Leah but with an N. So what type of certification does she have?
Oh boy, I forget. She just did a course for our Healing Humanity Life membership site. Really great course. it was a fitness course, but she also, I think her certification is, I don't know if it's a primal health coach or certification, or I think it's more like mobility type thing and kinesthetics.
okay.
And yeah.
Just very
So
intuitive, like you can tell when you
yes,
she knows her body, and I can relate to that, because a lot of times when you know your body and you notice every little symptom that you have, and you just know your body, people look at you like you're a hypochondriac, and like real normal people that aren't eating a carnivore diet. Well, we're normal to us, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
just especially doctors and stuff. They're like, "Oh, why are you paying attention to that?" Because your body gives you signs. It gives you small indicators before it gives you the big indicators down the road. And
yeah,
I'm going to pay attention.
yeah. And
Anyway,
hair loss, I mean, hair loss is nothing, I mean, it freaked me out. It was
yeah.
probably a good month that I was noticing like handfuls of hair coming out.
Mhm.
And I was freaking out too. It's like, is this going to end?
Yeah.
But
It is
it
scary.
did. It just takes a long time. It's taking a while for it to grow out. I mean, I'm getting it grown out more at the top, but even like the ends and stuff are still pretty thin from where I lost, a lot of hair. So
Well, that's one reason
okay.
why I just got mine cut off, because I was noticing that, like, from probably here down, it was just a lot thinner and it was just hard to deal with. And so I
Mhm.
thought, I'm just going to cut it, and we're going to start fresh and just let it, hopefully do its thing and get to whatever length I feel like it's good at. I would rather have my hair be healthy than long,
Yeah, yeah, same here. I'm probably not
Yeah.
gonna let mine get much, like, past, like, just touching the shoulder.
Well,
I
your
think it just
haircut
looks
is
better.
adorable.
Oh,
I didn't really do this, Carrie, but I was gonna joke around to you and tell you today that I showed them your picture when I went in, because I
oh,
love your hair. Your hair is so cute.
oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, we went off on a tangent, but that's okay. Where do we leave off?
That's
Um,
us.
the upshot of
Okay.
O'Connor.
Perfect.
Okay, so I can go ahead and read a couple more paragraphs here.
Okay.
The upshot of O'Connor's investigation was that Coca-Cola released a list of all the organizations and individuals it was funding in 2015. The list included 21.8 million on research that favored the industry, 96.8 million on partnerships with health organizations, including 2.1 million paid directly to 115 individuals considered health experts, most of whom, 63%, were active on social media, either on Twitter or Facebook. But even that list was incomplete, as it did not include funding of the Center for Disease Control, CDC, and the U.S. National Institutes of Health, NIH. So, isn't that something?
Man,
Think
talk
about
about
that. Fox Garden and
conflict
Hen
of
House for
interest.
sure.
That's crazy. Yeah. Lots of conflicts of interest there.
Big time. I mean, I guess,
Understand how this can go over and just nobody cares. Nobody notices it. If they do notice it, they just don't care. It's just,
or somehow you're made to be like you're a conspiracy theorist or a crazy person, but it's there. I mean, the facts are there. It's not like somebody's making this up. I mean, it's out there and we
yeah.
know it.
And
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 but
they and
but
they
they'll
act
say,
they act like we're like science deniers or something. I'm
mm-hmm,
not a science denier. I'm just someone who looks into things, and you
right.
know, I don't agree with a lot of what we could go down a rabbit hole here, but there are a lot of things that, true science deniers will be like, way out there, right?
Mm-hmm,
What we are doing is we are learning. We are actually looking into stuff. We're looking at the history, the raw data.
mm-hmm.
This is real. You can't pretend like things don't exist just because you want people to make money. Hey, can you put my comment up on the screen? I don't think Mike can see it, and it's to him.
Let's see. Yes.
I didn't want to
Judy
talk
is,
while you guys were reading, so
Okay.
yeah, it's easy. It's easy to put people off as, oh, they're just crazy, or
Mhm.
oh, they're just conspiracy theorists, and they might be, or maybe you should look into it a little.
there's nothing wrong with questioning,
I was
and
going to say
Yeah.
that.
we should question. And
Yeah.
it seems like if you question nowadays, you're labeled.
Yeah.
And that's wrong. We should be able to question. If science is about questioning and challenging and
It's
all of that.
supposed to
So
be.
it is.
And
Yeah.
the fact that so many times I feel like we've read so many examples of where science has not been questioned appropriately. It has not been, it has been like the buddy system, the good old boy system, as far as like, oh, yeah, here, I wrote this paper. Now, my friend is going to, my peer is going to review this and get it out there, push it out there to the world. And it's
And
just,
we don't
yeah,
like this data, so we're not going to include it.
yeah.
Right.
Like, we're just gonna, and if we don't like the results, we don't have to show anybody that we actually did this research and this is what we found. We're just gonna hide that in an attic or a basement somewhere, or burn it. I mean, who knows what they're doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really valid for people to question, like if you're getting paid millions of dollars, that maybe it might impact your thinking. And, you might be a little bit biased, right?
Well, you're not going to
So,
bite the hand that feeds you, because you're not going to get
No.
funding if you, if your research doesn't match what they want or what their goal is. I mean,
And that's kind of just human nature.
Yeah.
It would be hard
Exactly.
to be put in that position and not go against your morals and your values, because I mean, let's face it, talks, and you got a family to support.
And and I think that people probably just start to justify, tweaking their opinions, tweaking the results, tweaking this and that. And, it's little by little, they justify things. And the next thing you know, you have some scientific study that you can't even rely on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
anyway, sorry, I got us off track, but
no, that's okay. It's a valid topic.
Very valid.
Yeah.
But what does the science say is the question. Is it impossible to outrun a bad diet? The evidence appears clear. A meta-analysis of 80 studies published between 1997 and 2004 produced findings shown in figure 1.13. This study found that advice and exercise alone were essentially useless in producing any weight loss. And and I think we all know that.
Yeah.
I mean, by experience. And that's why, like, so many doctors too, I think now are really starting to question. I mean, there's, our friend, Dr. Nelson and Dr. Berry, and I mean, just on and on, more and more doctors all the time are, because they, initially they were like healthy, but then as they aged, years of a bad diet, and the next thing you know, then they'd crack down doing what they had been advising people to do all along, and it didn't work. So, and everybody knows it doesn't work, but somehow, it's just when I say we, I mean as a society in general, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Well, you realize, you see exercise alone, which is the yellow, there's an initial drop. And with a lot of these, there's an initial drop and then you gain it back, except for this one drug. Of course, it looks like they're not quite done with the study, but they don't have, of course, they don't define that. Like one of the purple is for diet alone. So just changing diet. It doesn't say how they change their diet.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't break down like what dietary changes. I'm assuming they were doing calorie restriction.
I love the advice alone. It's totally useless.
Totally useless. That's right.
That is so funny to me.
Eat
It's
less,
like,
move more. Yeah.
just skip it. Okay. There's no need for you to give any useless advice.
Right.
Although it's interesting because it showed a slight upward blip in that 36 months. So does that mean that you give advice and they kind of gain a little bit of weight after a little while?
Your advice was so bad that it actually caused them to get fatter.
Oh my word. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. But it's pretty sad though when the only thing that shows at least a somewhat steady decrease in weight is the drug.
Yeah.
I think if they broke down the dietary approach, they would probably see that we're carnivore diet and the ketogenic diets are much better performers, hopefully.
Yeah.
But you got to stick to it. So,
And I do think that exercise is useful, especially after you've been doing your diet for, let's say 6 months plus, and then you add that exercise, you get kind of that little extra boost. And it is good. I mean, it does change the way it changes the amount of sugar that your muscles are able to take in, and kind of get your blood sugar levels down a little bit more, and that will help also to help you lose weight.
Yeah.
And you
So we
just
have a
feel
comment.
better when you get up and do something,
Yeah.
but it's like I've always enjoyed like walking and hiking and stuff like that as an exercise. I mean, and hula hoop, but
Yeah.
I love my hula hoop. But it's like now, it's like, especially after keto and then carnivore, it's like, it's not an effort for me to get up in the morning and go for my walk. It's like, I want to get out and enjoy. And I don't have headphones in when I do either. I listen to the birds, I see the sun come up. I see the patterns of the clouds, and it's just a beautiful experience. So
that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So we have a question. So ketovore 11 months, down 35 pounds. So gallbladder out 6 months ago, was a great pooper. Now, was this like before you went keto, or was this while you were keto and then after your gallbladder was removed? Like timing on, like, when were you a great pooper? She said, but all of a sudden, it sounds like you were doing the ketovore diet. You got your gallbladder out, and you were still doing fine with your bowel
It's still a
movement.
great pooper, what it sounds like.
Still feeling good, and then all of a sudden, random stomach aches.
Okay.
Yeah, and the GI. Okay, so you're getting a colonoscopy. No diagnosis as of yet. Bile malabsorption. Yeah, I mean, it could be. So the colonoscopy will at least see if there's anything that they can identify going on. So it's a good step to at least have it and see, because there's
question for you. When you say stomach aches, are we talking our actual stomach or abdominal aches?
Right. Is it like in relation to your belly button? Where is the pain? Is it, because you need to identify is it abdominal pain and stomach? They're two different things.
Call their abdomen their stomach. So just clarify.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then of course with the random watery stools, and not sure how old you are, but I mean, there's a variety of things. It could be a case of, it could be lymphocytic colitis. Are you eating cheese? Hard to say. Bile malabsorption.
Pain is above the belly button, she said. Or he, I don't know if it's a girl or a guy.
Like in the middle? Like just above the belly button, or kind of like between your rib cage and the sternum and the belly button? Is it in the middle? Is it off to one side or the other? So And I guess a question too would be, are they going to also do an upper endoscopy? It sounds like the colonoscopy will help see if there's a reason why you're having the watery stools.
I mean, I'll have random watery stools if I eat something I'm sensitive to or something with high histamine.
Yeah.
Especially before I healed a little bit. Now I can tolerate a little bit higher histamine than I could before. But I never was as bad as Lynn, as far as like my tolerance or my sensitivity to histamine. I had a little bit. It was obvious, but it wasn't like Lynn's.
Yeah. My histamine issue was pretty severe. So female, 65 years old, pain radiates from left side to tummy. I'm not sure what tummy means. Just had an upper endoscopy. Okay. So they didn't find anything from that then, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it could be a lot of things, unfortunately.
Abdominal issues are hard to diagnose, and I'm assuming hopefully you've kept a food and symptom journal to see if there's a correlation between what you're eating, the amount of rendered fat versus solid fats, the amount of fat you're eating. Hard to say. GI things are hard to diagnose. I was a GI nurse for 7 years, and there's a lot of workup that goes into trying to figure out what's going on.
Well, there's a lot of square footage in there too, right, Lynn?
There is a ton of square footage. Yeah. And there's a whole bunch, like you can have, 7 or 8 patients come in with the same symptoms, and it can be 7 or 8 different things causing it.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of getting in there and investigating what's going on. It's just kind of interesting that this is so far into your journey with your diet that this happened. So yeah, it makes me okay. So scope shows I have gastritis and a small hiatal hernia. Yeah, and small hiatal hernias don't really cause any symptoms, but gastritis absolutely would.
Gastritis sure will. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So the gastritis definitely would explain why you're having the pain there.
And it could be something totally unrelated to diet. So that's why it's good that you are, having these diagnostic procedures done so that you can kind of try to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The all of a sudden things are, they're always more concerning when, but I think the time frame where you have been on this way of eating for so long, and then all of a sudden you have this makes me wonder, is there something that tweaked in your diet that's different? Or is it completely unrelated? Yeah. Hopefully the colonoscopy will reveal something. But with age 65 in female lymphocytic colitis, there's actually there's 3 categories of colitis that are not inflammatory bowel disease, and they're not only visible and through random biopsies of the colon. And lymphocytic colitis is one of them, and they are very common when you're in your 60s, and particularly for women. And so that's probably one of the things you might want to ask the doctor if they're going to check for lymphocytic colitis and see if that's the case. Some people get it just once, and the doctor gives them a course of oral budesonide and it clears up. Cheese can be a trigger for lymphocytic colitis. So I'm not sure if you're eating cheese or not, but cheese can be a trigger. So if you want to try, if you're eating cheese, maybe try going off of cheese and see if that makes a difference. And some people keep getting it, so it's hard to tell. But hopefully the colonoscopy will go well and we'll give you the answers. The frustrating thing is when you have the colonoscopy and it doesn't give you the answers. So that happens all too often, unfortunately. So,
All right.
All right. Okay. So where are we at? Are we almost done with this section? This is a long one, huh?
It is. Okay. We're on the last paragraph on page 51. So the most recent meta-analysis found that low carbohydrate ketogenic diets outperform low-fat diets for weight loss for both those with and without type 2 diabetes. This matches our anecdotal clinical experience that the low carbohydrate ketogenic diet outperforms the low fat diet in the real world, and that those self-administering this diet can achieve substantial weight losses, in some cases as much as 80 to 100 kilograms. I'm not sure how to translate that into pounds, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's actually good. So,
All right.
Kim.
So, yeah.
All right, Kim, you want to take the next one?
I'm trying to translate it. It would be 176 pounds and to 220 pounds of weight loss.
Wow. Are you sure?
I think so. The 2.2, right?
I know 100 kilometers per hour is 60 miles per hour.
To get kilograms
Oh,
per
it's 2.2 pounds. That's right.
you divide by 2.2
pounds per kilogram.
I mean, you multiply by 2.2 is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I just said, but it's 2.2.
That's a lot. So, okay, I'm going to do, so it's 100, so 80. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, that is a lot.
That just seems weird because usually we only see like, oh, they lost 14 pounds. Yay. You know?
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing, the studies are generally, they're not very long in duration. And so like they'll do a ketogenic diet for, I don't know, 4 weeks, and then they'll swap them to a low fat diet for the next 4 weeks, or, they might have a phase out period or something.
Yeah.
But basically though, the study doesn't last that long. And of course that colors the results too, because especially with a ketogenic diet, when you first start that, I mean, depending on like how carb dependent you were, I mean, you are going to have the carb flu. You're just going to have, or keto flu. You're going to feel like crap. So that can also impact the results of the study too, is how beneficial the ketogenic diet is versus like low fat and some of the others.
Yeah. It's wild how anybody who's ever tried the ketogenic diet knows that like it would not be unusual at all for someone to be able to lose 100 pounds plus. And then these people who have never tried it, who are like, oh no, keto's bad. It's you shouldn't ever want to be in ketosis, or you shouldn't want to stay in ketosis, It's just wild.
Well, a lot of people don't understand the difference between nutritional ketosis and keto and acidosis,
Mm-hmm.
Even some doctors, I might add.
Right. Yep.
True.
Which is scary to me, but okay.
Yes, ketoacidosis is not the same as nutritional ketosis.
No.
Yeah, so lots of people have lost 100 pounds. Yes, I'm in the 100-pound club.
I forget that about you, Lynn.
Yeah.
So how much have you lost altogether?
Just barely over 100. I've been stalling for the last, there must be something psychological about getting to that 100-pound point, because I got over 100 pounds, and then I got to like 102-pound loss, and then I've been stalling, but I've also been happy that I can tolerate more histamine foods, and I've been eating dairy. And so like this week I went off of dairy again.
Yeah.
And so like no more dairy. So we're going to see what happens. But it's almost like I was celebrating.
I think a lot of people have been stalled lately, which, I hate to use that word, but whatever. But we ought to just all get together and do like a strict lion or a BBB&E or something, and just see if we can all get over the hump.
I am back to the BBB&E because I'm delighted that I can now eat bacon, and I can now eat the whole egg and not just the egg yolk.
Yeah.
And so, at least a couple of nights a week, we're having bacon and eggs for dinner, and, and full of, I make the eggs with lots of butter. So that's really good.
I've I've actually cut down on my butter a whole lot since I was taking a stick of butter to work and eating just a big hunk of it. It was probably what amounts to about maybe a couple, 3 tablespoons. I don't know. I was just kind of chopping it off and eating it with my hamburger. And I really discovered that a lot of butter gives me diarrhea. So,
Yeah, and supposedly, yeah, the fat. I mean, maybe you're not as fat adapted. And now, do you still have your gallbladder?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't have mine. I can handle eating raw butter.
I mean, I think it's probably just people's different constitutional makeup, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
I know that I have a casein sensitivity that showed up on like a blood test. So I don't know if butter, I would have to Google and see if butter has casein in it, which is one of the milk proteins. I bet it does.
I wonder if you'd have issues with ghee or if you're okay with ghee.
I don't know. I don't think. I've tried ghee, but I mean, I just used it to cook with. I didn't sit there and eat it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to eat
It was a
ghee.
lot of butter. Like I've never had trouble with just butter here and there, but it was just more butter than my system wanted to absorb at that time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, your body will tell you if you've had too much fat.
Yeah.
So, yeah, awesome. All righty. So, Kim, you want to take this next section?
Yes, let me get my spectacles on here.
Yeah.
Okay. 1.3.9.3, goal number 3, reduce saturated fat consumption to about 10% of total energy intake. Balance that with polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats to about 10% of energy intake each. The problem: this change reduced consumption of nutrient-dense animal products and increased consumption of polyunsaturated vegetable oils. The result: the increased consumption of polyunsaturated vegetable oils has contributed to the burden of ill health. Goal 3 is the single piece of dietary advice that has caused the most uncertainty and disagreement, because everyone knows that dietary saturated fat causes bad cholesterol, bad blood LDL cholesterol concentrations to increase in everyone. The diet heart hypothesis of Ansel Keys. Everyone also knows that this increase clogs the arteries, the coronary arteries. Yeah. Keys lipid hypothesis. Everyone also knows that bad LDL cholesterol explains why dementia and cancers are rising worldwide. Hopefully, once you've read this book, you will no longer be captured by the greatest scam in the history of medicine, as a growing body of scientists and doctors has labeled it.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? So, but that's unfortunate, how they're saying everybody knows. And in the book, it's in quotes, so it's like tongue in cheek. And bad LDL cholesterol is also tongue in cheek but it's sad because that's what medicine knows.
Yeah.
Right. That's why they'll put you on a statin and they'll tell you to reduce your saturated fat intake because they know it clogs your arteries.
And I think this next section is actually part of goal 3. So I'll keep reading.
I think so. Yeah.
1.3.9.3.1. What of advice to increase polyunsaturated fat or PUFA intake? The single greatest change in the U.S. diet over the past century has not been an increase in carbohydrate and sugar consumption. Rather, it has been increased consumption of vegetable oils, especially soybean oil and most especially soy oil. This increase accelerated in 1961 when the American Heart Association finally bought into Keys' diet heart hypothesis and began to promote the substitution of dietary saturated fat with polyunsaturated fats.
Okay, I have a question. What's the difference between soybean oil and soy oil?
I don't know.
Okay. I'm gonna have to look this up.
I guess maybe the bean is a different part of the plant, and so I thought. I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm going to look this up because this is going to bug me because I've never heard of those, that there were two
You
different
look it
things.
up. You look it up while I keep reading.
Okay.
The fact that the AHA had recently received a large financial windfall from Procter & Gamble, manufacturers of the original polyunsaturated vegetable oil shortening, Crisco, was clearly simply coincidental. I heard a little bit of sarcasm there.
A little bit more. I love their sense of humor
I do
in
too.
writing this. It's awesome.
I do too.
And my search engine said that soybean oil and soy oil are the exact same thing. So I'm not sure what the deal is here.
I don't know why
Well,
I thought of that then.
If anyone knows, let us know.
This change in the AHA advice had a profound effect on the consumption of vegetable oils in the United States. It would naturally have been ideal if the AHA's decision had been based on hard scientific evidence available at the time, rather than on what now appears to have been a bribe from the processed food industry. Both Keyes and Stamler knew that to test the diet heart hypothesis properly, they would need to conduct a randomized controlled trial involving the substitution of dietary saturated fat with a polyunsaturated fat. The money for just such a study, the Minnesota Coronary Experiment, which ran from 1968 to 1973, was subsequently raised. The tested dietary intervention was the substitution of saturated fat with polyunsaturated fatty acid, or PUFA, linoleic acid. The initial results were first published only in 1989, 15 years after the trial had been completed. The reason for this publication delay became apparent in 2016 when the original data was rediscovered, reanalyzed, and reported 48 years after the study began. The properly analyzed data uncovered some extremely inconvenient findings. Persons randomized to the intervention diet were at 22% higher risk of death for each 0.78 millimoles reduction in blood cholesterol concentrations, an effect that was especially apparent in those over 65 years of age. Running somewhat concurrently with the MCE was the Sydney Diet Heart Study, which was conducted between 1966 and 1971. In that study, men with myocardial infarction were randomized to either a control group, which continued to eat its usual diet, or an intervention group, which replaced dietary saturated fat with the linoleic acid from safflower oil and sunflower oils. The original study concluded that the intervention diet had little effect, either harmful or detrimental, so that none of the dietary factors were significantly related to survival. Despite this, there were significantly more deaths in the intervention group. As the MCE, when the data was reanalyzed and republished as the Recovered Sydney Diet Heart Study, it was again found that the replacement of dietary saturated fat with linoleic acid was associated with increased all-cause mortality and with increased deaths from both cardiovascular disease and coronary heart disease. In reviewing all of the current evidence, Lawrence has concluded that PUFAs are unstable to chemical oxidation, and their oxidation products are harmful in a variety of ways. PUFAs also form powerful signaling agents that can initiate inflammation, which can have dire health consequences. If saturated fats are replaced by carbohydrates in the diet, there would be no significant improvement in serum cholesterol and can result in a more atherogenic lipoprotein profile. When looking at much of the data in the context of known biochemical and physiological mechanisms, it appears that saturated fats are less harmful than the common alternatives.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
when are we going to start to hear that broadly announced?
Like never.
Needs to be real soon. Yes,
So
Mike. Listen, Mike has a great point, and he said it in such a good way. Those jerks have been straight up killing people.
Yep.
There you go. There's no other explanation, right? I mean, if they've got these studies that were reevaluated and they're showing the opposite, then why aren't they telling everybody? This is the chart that was referenced kind of at the beginning of this last section, where they were talking about the change in the AHA advice had a profound effect on the consumption of vegetable oils in the United States. So this is showing a timeline. And this is showing, I guess, the consumption, I'm assuming. Well, let me read it.
Lynn, can you make it like the whole screen and like make us go away so we can see it real good? There.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Is that better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the figure, I'll read what it says. It says the historical event immediately preceding the largest increase in apparent consumption of soy in the United States was 1961 American Heart Association Central Committee advisory statement advising Americans to replace their saturated fat intake with polyunsaturated fat oils or vegetable oils. So annual consumption of polyunsaturated vegetable oils in the United States from 1909 to 1999 is in this chart. Note that there has been relatively little change in the annual consumption of cottonseed, corn, coconut, and olive oil. So this is consumption. This is not like weight or anything. It's just showing that we started eating a whole lot more. However, a dramatic and progressive increase in soybean oil consumption began after publication of the 1961 AHA advisory, which advocated the reduction or control of fat consumption under medical supervision with reasonable substitution of polyunsaturated fats for saturated fats. And so, this was, so we can see how the consumption of soybean oil just kind of went up, and up over the years.
Wow. And look at where that started to really climb up there, like around 1969.
Mm-hmm.
And so it probably took a few years to have a true effect on the health of the entire, world, really, but just specifically of the nation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we start noticing probably 25 years later that everybody looks different. I mean, I'm not saying that correlation equals causation here, but it's awfully suspicious.
Yeah. Well, and if you look here, it's hard to see, but this one, I don't know. Can you see my mouse?
No.
At all?
No.
Okay. All right. So where the arrow is for 1961, that's when they had the AHA advisory. And so we saw a quick little blip upward in soybean, but then it went back down again. And then the next thing that happened was they reduced the cotton production. I wonder if there was a change in subsidies that occurred here.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, that was my wondering if they changed subsidizing cotton to soybeans at that point. And then it was kind of climbing. In 1977, there was a U.S. Committee on Nutrition and Human Needs. And then in 1986, there were the dietary guidelines. And then you can see that it was starting to trend down back in the late 1980s. And then in 1990, it says something about a law that was passed.
There was, I wonder if that's something to do with the restaurants. They were, but maybe that's after that. I'm trying to think about the timeline.
I know what you're talking about, Carrie, where they made the restaurant switch again.
Yep.
And I can't remember the details of it, but
but it was starting to trend downward, and then it looks like there was some sort of government intervention that made it turn around and go the other direction.
Yeah.
But Interesting how things change over the years. And of course, if we overlaid this with like average weight, we would probably see a correlation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Man.
So interesting. All righty. All right. Well, you guys want to stop there?
Yeah, my son's in the truck now, so
Okay. All
we
right.
gotta
Sounds
leave the
good.
river and go back home.
Yes, you can leave your home off. You're on the road home and go to your real home.
My
So
office.
awesome. All right. Well, thanks you guys, and thanks for
All right.
everybody who joined us. And we are here. And it looks like I'm going to be able to continue doing this time frame because
Okay.
our Healing Humanity Zoom call is later on Thursday. So that's good. Yeah.
That's
So we can keep having you in your car.
Yeah. Well, it'll only be for this semester because this is his first semester of college. So I would say by next semester, he'll probably be driving himself. And then, he probably won't have class at this time. So,
Yeah. Good deal.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We're going to go ahead and sign off.